Yo, 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 we back at the launching pad. Man, I am excited about this one here. I got a legend in the building, a living legend at that. Mr. Newton Collier. How's it going, sir?
Good. Better be living than dead and laid flat.
That's right, that's right. So how was your day?
My day's been good, man.
It's good.
Chilling out, enjoying the first nice, beautiful day of summer, they say.
Today's the official first day.
I don't know, it just feels good.
It feels like the first day.
It feels like the first day.
Okay, okay. So let's start here. Where are you originally from?
Macon, Georgia.
Macon, Georgia.
It's
Born and raised.
1945, July 23rd.
So let's talk about back in the days. How was it? How was it growing up in Macon, Georgia?
Growing up in Macon, Georgia, I first started realizing who I was when I was small. I lived in 41B, Tyndall Heights, up until I was about 5 years old. And what I remember mostly about that, what I actually remember were my actual partners and friends. I remember three or four different people, and a couple of people lived in the project unit and across the street from me. And we used to have this little hill, we used to call ourselves going down the hill, but I found out it was only 6 steps down, and we were small.
Right.
We had a cardboard. You take the cardboard and slide down the hill.
Right.
That was probably about 2 or 3 hours worth of entertainment, right? Then we had my aunt lived down the street at that time, and she brought up peaches and oranges, and we'd take the plums and throw them at each other. Then pick. This is crazy. Pick the plums up and eat them.
Right.
But that was kids. And we had the playground behind me, which was called the center field. Now, we couldn't go on the center field unless someone took us up there. Because the big boys up there, they'll probably trample us to death, you know. We had these monkey bars, and being small, we wanted to get on the monkey bar, but we couldn't go up top. We had to just stay down on the bottom and play at the bottom of the monkey bars. And they had a swimming pool, which I found out was less than 6 inches deep.
Right.
So that was called the swimming pool. You're big enough to put your feet in there, you get your ankles wet. And that took care of the rest of the day. And we'd go home and dry off.
So was Tyndall Heights tight knitted community?
Right. You're talking about maybe 500, 600 kids and all. It was
Wow.
Tyndall Heights is a project that came up in 1940. It was one of the first in the United States of its kind. It was actually signed off through the Roosevelt Act, the government act.
Eleanor Roosevelt.
Eleanor Roosevelt. She's the one that signed off on it. And so she, I don't think she ever came here, but it was for low-income people. We were talking about people that needed income,
Right.
low income.
Right. People that suffer from poverty.
Right.
Right.
Because Tybee was the actual area that a lot of these people came from. And you know the
Tybee Island.
No, not Tybee Island, Little Tybee and Macon.
Okay.
Now to mention that, Tybee Island became Tybee Island. We know about that. But in Macon, during the slavery time, and they had the train running. They'll bring cotton from the Tybee Islands into Macon. So somebody smart enough to think about, oh, we need some people already here that know how to handle the cotton.
Right.
And that's why the people that came to Tybee Islands moved into Macon, and they moved them back into Tybee, which is actually behind.
So where was that area at?
Tybee would be from, I would say, Poplar Street, on the other side of the railroad tracks, all the way out to maybe where the industrial park started,
Right.
in South Macon. Maybe to Hazel Street.
Fifth Street.
And Tybee was a black neighborhood.
It was all black. There was nothing but people from the Tybee Island.
That's where a lot of the churches started at.
Did
Right. Turner Tabernacle.
Macedonia started in that
That started
area.
there.
Yeah.
was Tybee before Pleasant Hill or
Tybee was before Pleasant Hill.
okay. So did a lot of the people from Tybee did they migrate to Pleasant Hill?
They got jobs. Remember now that there was money being made, cotton, and then turned the century to the start the industrial part, and money started making. That's when Pleasant Hill actually came with 1879. So that was money being made. Tybee came before that.
Okay. So with you, I want to know, where did this love for music come in at?
Oh, okay. I was raised in Turner Chapel like every church, which is basically guitar. It's on third and hot dog. And they had organ and we had Mr. George Fuller, Mr. Robert Scott, Robert Worthy, a couple more guys that were there. They were in bands, and Nina Horn was a member of the church also.
Nina Horn.
That was before my time. But these people I remember. And Mr. Scott was a family friend, and he would come around, and there was a man named Nathan Black, Professor Black. He would come by, and they would just have a little trio or something. And Mr. George Fuller bring his trombone. Ed Travis was a trombone player, and Mr. Scott played trumpet and trombone, and Mr. Black played piano. So they had a church band. And so I used to just love to listen to the band. And I got old enough, I think, that inspired me. And then again, there was a piano in our house. Every house I lived in had a piano in it. And so my mother played piano and my aunt played piano. And all of them got together sometime and played sometime at the house. And sometimes be 3 or 4 musicians playing, so I'm just, hey, I like that. And so I started.
So after the piano lessons, what took place inside of you?
Okay, me being nosy, of course, these people are in her house. I didn't have to leave her. Miss Gladys took to me because of my mama. I was like my other mother in many ways. So I would hang around, and they would be talking about where they been and what they doing, and I said, "Oh, this can be, man, this is cool. This is, it's cool."
Right.
And I got more interested in it, and I kept asking I probably asked her, can I do that one day? She's probably told me, yeah. So I said, I want to learn to play I want to learn to play what's on the radio. Oh, what did I say that for? She said, well, you have to learn what's on this music sheet before you can play that.
Right.
She said, you just don't play that. That's a way of getting that. So that's when she started teaching me the basics of chord changes and how they were playing music.
So the piano was the first instrument that you played?
That was the first instrument I played.
Okay.
And Sammy Davis Jr. was there one day, and
who?
Sammy Davis Jr.
Okay.
He was
I thought
that's because he had been there because of Earl. Her son played with the Porgy and Bess.
Okay.
So remember now, when they going from Atlanta to Jacksonville for the next show,
They stopped
in Macon the state. They're not gonna just drive all the way. Macon is halfway. That's part of the Chitlin circuit. That's how that works.
Right.
So he had a little trumpet or something like that. And I came in, they were playing music. So I was, first of all, impressed because I saw that great big old pretty car I'd never seen before in my life out front. Hey, Rolls Royce, man, what the heck, I'm taking my time, look at this thing. So I came on in, and I saw him sitting there, and he said, hello, how you doing? And so, I think I let them go on. They went on and got through with that little program, whatever they were playing. And I asked, I said, can I try that? And I did that buzzed it. So I went home and told my mother I wanted one of those trumpets.
Right.
So she went and got me a trumpet.
How old was that?
I was 10 years old when I got it, and I actually started hitting the clubs when I was about 12 years old. Because I forgot all about going around there playing with the boys, playing basketball and baseball. And
Right.
I wasn't good at basketball, I wasn't good at baseball. They used me as a cleanup man. I mean, so the side of the bench. Everybody else get tired. I was a real sub.
Okay.
I do remember. I almost dumped one time. I almost broke my finger, but I almost did it.
Okay.
I ain't gonna do it no more.
So when music captured you, was there already was already a music scene in Macon?
Oh yeah, that was a music scene. Yes, that was.
Talk about the music scene back then.
Okay, the music scene in Macon at that time was in Tyndall Heights, where I lived. It was a band called Patty Tea Cake, featuring a guy named Johnny Jenkins. This was 56, 57, and they had a guy named Bill Jones that was the singer. Now all these people tied to Miss Gladys, I didn't know all this stuff. And they had a guy named Ray Brown. He was actually Satellite Papa. Ray Brown was having the book down, and they would be practicing across the street on Campbell Avenue. Now we living on Prince and Campbell. Now we moved out the projects. They lived across the street, down the street a little bit, about 3 or 4 houses.
Now let me ask you this, not to cut you off. Around this time, was the Douglas Theater popular?
Yes, it was popular, right.
So you had outside acts coming in too?
Outside acts coming in. They wasn't necessarily coming into the Douglas all the time. Now they were coming in the Club 15. They could come in to the Elks Club, Adams Lounge. Now it's popular. Adams Lounge now, at this time, maybe 10 years old. Club 15, I imagine, 6 or 7 years old at this time. So they bring in the maniacs in. There was another place out Great Highway called Club Manhattan. It was popular. And then over in Bellevue, there was a man named Mr. Crawford Mann. He had an ambulance club. And some kind of way he was bringing in name acts at his club in the neighborhood.
And all of these was black establishments?
All black establishments.
Wow.
And so they started, they come in and what I noticed when I first got out there was that people from out of town were coming, like from Atlanta. They were catching the Nancy Hank at 6 o'clock in Atlanta, coming into Macon.
That's the bus?
It's a train.
A train.
They catch the train coming in, get off the train, walk 1 block in, and they catch a cab and go where they had to go. And they would stay until 4 o'clock in the morning. At 4 o'clock, you go to the bus station, you see those same people eating and hanging out in this train going to Atlanta called the Royal Palm. So at 6 o'clock, they were back in Atlanta. So they've been
The
to
Royal
Macon.
Palm or the Royal Peacock?
Royal Palm is the name of that train.
Before that was the train.
The train.
Okay.
They go back to that station. Now the Royal Peacock, that came
That's
many years later.
Yeah.
That was a club. That's many years later.
Okay.
I'm still back in the 50s. You know, you in the 70s.
Right.
Close to the 80s. But that's where people coming. They were coming from all different places. And see, that's when Macon also had access to that air base. All these airmen that were here. The airmen were coming into Macon. You see soldiers coming in. I mean, it's just constantly soldiers coming in and out of town. From the bus station to the train station was a block away. In downtown. All they do is walk across the street from the bus station. You come in on the bus, you walk out in the streets, you're on Broadway. The whole street lined up, nightclubs and beer joints and restaurants, all kinds of black-owned businesses. That wasn't the only street. You had Poplar Street and Cotton Avenue the same way.
So when did it start going down? Like when did
I say around 70, 71, 72.
What happened?
Well, it was segregation. It was just about ending, and integration came in, and people start now. They're talking about moving out of the city, getting better. They had good jobs, but now they're being offered houses that are out in the suburban area, and the city started expanding, and you lost the core downtown, which everybody knew. And then your businesses started moving. 74, 75, they made the Macon Mall. Davidson's, Newberry's, Woolworth, all those stores
Closed.
left out. All the clothing stores basically shut and went to the Macon Mall. So now there's no reason to come downtown, because now those same people that were going to come to those stores are the people coming to go to the clubs. So that just killed the whole club business by eliminating all those
Makes
other
sense.
businesses.
Makes sense.
So what did it turn into? Like
The city went under. I mean, just downtown. Like when I came back in '87, you could run tumbleweeds down the street. I remember going 1 or 2 nightclubs, and then '76.
And what happened with because you were saying that it was a train station and a bus station.
Train
so
station
what happened
stopped.
to like the tourism and all of that?
All that just stopped.
Wow.
It just, you done 5 years here. was no more. Because the trains stopped coming, and the airport basically stopped running. The airplanes that were coming in here, they didn't come no more. So you just didn't have no tourism. And the airmen, well, everything started, they built up Warner Robins then. Everything went to Warner Robins, and that's why all the airmen would come directly in. They just come straight to the base. They wouldn't even come into Macon, basically. They just come straight through.
Okay, so
That was a whole
you said it started going down around the 70s.
Right. Early
So
70s.
what was the musicians doing around this period in time? Because the tourism stopped and the club stopped. So
They moved out of town. A lot of musicians moved away. Found their jobs and didn't worry about playing music.
so do you think that's why the culture is the way it is now?
Right.
How do we get it back?
You get it back, okay, we have things, you get it back by musicians getting more clubs for musicians to play in, because you have clubs now. But as far as musicians playing in clubs, a lot of club musicians don't play in.
Right.
And even though they have DJs and everything, some of them don't even have that, they just have canned music.
Right.
And you got to get it back to more exposing the
Well,
younger kids.
Let's take it back.
To the
How did you get your foot in the door?
Through Johnny Jenkins and Otis Redding, I was passed down to Otis Redding system. Johnny Jenkins had a band, they were playing over the Mercer University. And Otis,
So you and Otis grew up together?
we grew up, he was a little older, but we grew up in the same project unit
He from Tender Heights?
in Tender Heights.
Okay.
And I basically started out playing with musicians that were from Tender Heights. And I got a lot of advice from the Gladys on how to get around and get into other bands. For a long time, I was a single act. I would just play with 2 or 3 bands at one time. But she taught me, she said, you got to put your loyalty somewhere. I said, okay. And so I did. That's when I really kicked off then. I was playing with Johnny Jenkins in the Pantop. I stayed with him about a summer tour. And that took me all through the South and got me out of Macon, really. And I saw what other musicians were actually doing. And being on the road like that, I would meet other musicians in different cities. And I ended up going to Augusta, Georgia. And I was playing with the band, Leroy Lord and the Swinging Dukes. And then I get the call to go down to the Bell Auditorium to play behind this group called Sam and David. I had heard of them, but I had not heard them. So I played behind them one night, and they asked me if I want to go on the road. I had nothing to lose. I went. That lasted 15 years. Now, in between that, I'm working for Red Wall Music. I'm still tied to Otis. I would be a what they call a swing band. And I played with Otis, but I also played with Johnny Taylor, Billy Collier, Sam and Dave, Joe Simon, whoever Otis wanted me to play with on his roster. Otis, the Red Wall roster, that's another story to have. Maybe 60 to 65 of your top artists. They were the largest booking agency on the East Coast, basically.
What was the name of it?
Red Wall Music. It was a tie-in between Otis Redding and Red Wall Music. Walden's. Alan Walden, Theo Walden, tied in with Otis Redding to make this production company. It's probably the first integrated publishing company and promotion company in the United States. And they started that in the 60s. And so Otis was...
Out of Capricorn?
Now that you mentioned Capricorn, Otis is that one that kicked that out and decided that he wanted that to be at home because he was going to Memphis to do all this recording. So he wanted to go to Memphis and come back to Macon, then do the record. No, he said, no, I want everything to be at home. I want to be at home. I want to see my baby.
Right.
Let's see as the babies. I want to see my babies. That type, something like that. So he went and found the Capricorn and they bought the building. That was in '66, so next year, Otis dies the next year. So he never got a chance to fulfill his dream. And then when Phil thought about it, Phil wanted after the oldest died, Phil wanted to just get out of the business, period. He said, I don't, he said, this, I lost my brother. They were basically brothers. They were tight. And he took Alan a couple of months to get it together. Alan lost his mind too. They both lost their mind. And Phil said, well,
After all this,
after oldest died, they were just,
that was true.
they were gone. And they got it together. He said, I need to find another act. So he went to Muscle Shoals and picked up Dwayne Allman. Actually, J. Johnny Johnson, who was playing with Otis, was the one that said, we got to put the bands back together. So they did. So he went and got Dwayne Allman. Dwayne went and got Greg. And that's the Allman Brothers. And so now you need a place to rehearse. We're getting to be 1969, maybe 1970, 71, in that era. The place was, okay, we need a club. So they decided they'll talk to Mr. Grant of Grant's Lounge, and that's why they started using that club as a rehearsal hall. So not only did they only use it as a rehearsal hall, they formed a new genre of music called Southern Rock. And the guy named Tom Petty came to be a member of the group, and they told Tom Petty, once you get a name that this is the home of Otis Redding, this was Otis Redding started, you'd be amazed at what you can get out of that.
Let me ask you this: How big was Otis?
He was bigger than Macon thought. He was the king of the Memphis soul. He had dethroned Elvis Presley in England. After 13 years of being on top, Otis came and pushed him off the top of being the number one.
Wow.
In England. So he had all this money and influence, and that brings into the fact that there's a guy named Frank Fenter came and joined Capricorn because he had been working with the Rolling Stones and the Beatles and all like that. And he came to work with them, and he's one of the ones that pushed this whole thing up to the next level with his English influence of people. And that's what helped the Allman Brothers get to where they were. You see, Tom Petty would have been on the label, but Bill said, I can't handle but one act at a time. Because when Otis died, they were having 65 or 70 acts or something like that. All kinds of people was in that. And
while Otis is, becoming a star, what is home like? Like, what is Macon saying about, Otis, or what
they were eating it up.
They were supporting him?
They were supporting him. He was getting the support.
Was he home often?
If you often wonder, when did he go to work? He had that plane, he could get to the job fast.
Right.
He had a party. He used to have parties every year. He gave 2 big shows in Macon. One usually around July the 4th, and the other one would be around December, in the middle of December, somewhere in there. And the funny one about there was a big barbecue festival out to the ranch, and he would actually invite everybody on tour. You see all kinds of celebrities coming to his parties out to the ranch. And he'll barbecue a couple of hogs or roast them and pick them up, and he'll let the kids ride the ponies.
Back then, Macon had a couple of stars. You had Otis, you had Little Richard, you had James Brown.
Right. But Otis and James Brown were closer than Little Richard and James Brown.
Really?
Now think about it, Little Richard was already out of town at the time. He was living in California. And James was still around Macon.
Wow.
What was he like?
James?
Mm-hmm.
I wait for Clint Ratley a little bit too, but I didn't get to know James. I knew some of the musicians. And they said James was hard to work with.
Right.
I knew some of the musicians. Everybody, all the musicians knew each other. I mean, the artists, they were the ones that had the problems. The musicians, we got along good. And Walter Johnson was the guy that did their hair on Saturday. And sometimes you have Walter doing Otis hair. You see Otis, Bobby Blue Bland, Joe Tech, all of them sitting in the barber shop waiting on Walter. They'll be talking about the road. And any young musician come in there will get inspired by just listening to them talking. They'll line the buses all the way up and down the street. Joe Tech bus, Otis Redding bus, Bobby Blue Bland bus, Joe Tech bus. You just
And you seeing all of
see
this.
all these different musicians moving around up in the streets, so yeah, if you didn't want to be a musician, you was in the middle of it.
So basically, it was almost like hearing this is like making you. In order to make it, you had to come through him.
You had to come through here some kind of way.
I mean, I was gonna ask you about that because I heard you talk about it earlier, but Macon was a part of the
Part of
chicken
the
circus.
chicken
It was a
circus.
major part of it.
Right, was a major part.
Talk about that for a little bit.
Chicken circuit, that was mostly the vaudeville acts. The chicken circuit was started in maybe the early 30s and ended maybe 55, 56, maybe a little bit later. But what it was mostly a southern thing. The top of the chicken circuit was when you get a chance to play the Apollo Theater. You have made it to the top. That means you're good. But the chicken circuit was a succession of nightclubs all through the South.
Now, let me ask you this,
Mhm.
because you said the Apollo, right? The Douglas Theater was before the Apollo, right?
They're about the same time.
Okay.
It fit right in just about the same time. Well, it was before.
Because I know, I'm thinking that the Douglas Theater started here, and then I know the Great Migration, when a lot of
Right.
us went up north, they brought the idea there.
Yeah, but see, the W Theater was more of a theater, movie theater, than it was a performance theater, although they did do performances.
Okay.
I was thinking more of just performance theaters.
Mhm.
A lot of the acts that came to Macon, if they had off time, they would come to the Douglas Theater to see movies and stuff, and they would have shows in the 30s, which was part of the Toba system. Toba was a company out of Chattanooga, Tennessee, which Mr. Douglas was on the board of directors of Toba. Now, they had another name for it. It's actually, they were Theater Owners Association Incorporation, or something like that. But there was also another name called Tough on Black Asses. Because you worked.
Right.
They said there were 365 days in a year. So you worked 365 days in a year. You had one day off. That didn't count.
Right.
Wow.
So that was your traveling day. They would send you out on a tour. Let's say 45-day tour. You'll play something like, let me give you an example of a tour. I'm gonna start in Miami. Play Miami. These are all one-nighters now. Miami, Jacksonville, Macon, Atlanta, Durham, North Carolina, back down to Columbia, South Carolina, back to Augusta, back through Macon driving, one day off, Columbus, Troy City, down to Montgomery, up to Birmingham, go up to Huntsville, hit Memphis, go across to Little Rock, Arkansas, come back down to Dallas, Texas. Remember, you had a day off. Every 6, 7 days, you had a long stretch, you had to get it. So you wasn't off, you were traveling. So that's what I mean, you had a day off, you still working, you got to get there.
Right.
And it was like that for 45, 50 days, and so
Wow.
each show, now remember, you got to perform, eat, sleep, and be ready for the next night. Oh, sleep, by the way. It's very important on the road to learn to be nice to people that from city to city you go. Because you might get some chitlins and something to take with you. You come out with little boxes, little shoebox looking thing. Might be a half a chicken, might be a whole chicken. chitlins was the easiest thing to work with. Because you batch your chitlins, you break it up, you got 9 people, you break it up in 9 different pieces. Everybody had that individual little box. So remember now, you're not checking in no hotels too much. Because there are no hotels. It was only in the 50s you were able to go to a nice hotel. You can stay in somebody's front yard. That's what happened here in Macon. The Green Book. You use the Green Book.
So the Green Book was here. I've
Green
heard
Book
about
was
the
started
Green
in
Book.
the 30s.
I heard about
and
the
the
Green
40s.
Book.
What that was is somebody in the book he said, okay,
It was
we're
a
going
black
to such and
directory,
such.
right?
It's a black directory.
Mm-hmm.
And we could go from one spot to the other spot with the Green Book. And you call ahead and tell them, I got 14 musicians. So you get to the club, the man said, we got 14 places for you to stay. So if you got to leave town at 5 o'clock, because you got 500 miles to go, a couple of hours you spend at those people's houses.
Right.
That's how the Green Book worked.
Wow.
And you always had that box to go, that shoe box. That was always included. Like somebody sitting over there eating, that would be happening on the bus. Somebody
Right.
get
They said
hungry,
they had barbershops,
They had
beauty
barbershops.
salons,
all of that.
cleaners, meat markets,
All of
everything. Yeah.
And-
Wow.
And the club owners most likely had contacts with all of those people. Let's say you need to get another shirt. Well, you call the club owner and say, hey man, I need a shirt size such and such, and I need it in white. The club owner had that shirt there waiting on you. That's because he went to somebody he knew that was in that business. That's what
And these
That's how they
different
work
these
together.
different cities, different
different
states.
cities, different situations.
Right? That's
It was a
A
network.
network.
It was a network.
yeah. That's a huge connection. You're right.
That's how the tipping circuit worked.
Wow. With that being said, we're gonna take a break and come right back.
No problem.
TWF Business Solution offers office rentals by the hour or monthly, event space rentals, online marketing, and management services. Contact Ms. Terry Ford at 478-297-6781. TWF Business Solutions, making small businesses relevant. TWF Business Solutions, 836 Walnut Street, Macon, Georgia, 31201.
Carry on.
We're back from the break, and we left off talking about the Green Book and how strong of a network that was. And again, my question is, how did we lose that connection with each other?
Okay.
And you said earlier, you said integration.
Mhm.
That's when, the division came. But how do we lose the connection of the togetherness and working together? Because from what you're saying, we once was.
There we were. See, we all lived in a village at one time. That village has been cut in half. A good example, right here in Macon. I'm going to use a perfect example of killing the city. Pleasant Hill. What do? Run the highway down through the best part of town for blacks. In order to get from one side to the next, you got to go all the way down and around. Old people can't do that. Young people can't either. So you just divide. It's divide and now conquer system. And that's what happened with the nightclubs and things downtown. They stopped people from coming in, and they just cut the source off. There's no need to come downtown because they just cut down all. They came in now. We got to make sure that all the food is inspected. And so if you're gonna be going to the club, you're gonna be eating. So now you can't. They close the food joints down. Hey man, I can't get no food at the club. And then they come in with Jim Crow type laws. The club close the clubs down. Or a neat way is to have the police do roadblocks. That's a good way of stopping you. Oh, you've been drinking too much. All right, 3 beers. Yeah, well, come on with me. We're going to jail. I'll give them a ticket. That's justification. That's how they divide and conquer. It's all divide and conquer.
Right. So as we was going our own ways with the division, we just lost
Lost it. 'Cause they
complete
kept
control of it.
Well, they gave you the idea that the grass is greener on the other side syndrome too. Oh,
So
yeah,
at this
that's
time period, more people started to work.
right.
Okay.
They're work. Most people are working and have pretty good jobs. Some of them they can get money, so they want to spend their money. So a good way of spending your money is won't you buy these houses over here? Now you're taking them out the village they lived in to another suburb. Oh, we bought some houses over here, but you come over here. You go down here. That's another way of doing it. That's breaking up the community.
Right. So what I'm understanding, you know, from your childhood, like the nightlife in the clubs and the black community that was within right there, that was really like empowering the community.
Right.
That was keeping the community afloat.
They kept it going.
So you had back then, you had a lot more, like today, entrepreneurs.
Right.
You had more people that was chasing their dreams and
Right.
and becoming self-made.
That's correct. We had, like in Tender Heights, we had guys that did plumbing, electricians. We had a guy had a TV shop, TV repair shop on one street. Now I'm talking one street, TV repair shop, 2 nightclubs, a couple of barber shops, a guy that shined shoes, a guy that fixed like a hardware guy type guy. He fixed things. There was a guy that knew how to do all kinds of just electronic stuff. That he was the one that had the shop.
Right.
If your radio went bad, he knew how to fix the radio, TVs, and everything. So everybody didn't have to go nowhere. They even had a lady that lived in there. That was a seamstress. She lived in Tender Heights. And if you need your clothes tailored, done something with that, she was the go-to lady.
Everything was right there.
Right there.
And when did they knock Tender Heights down?
It's been a couple of years now, maybe close to 10 years now. About 10 years.
Where did everybody, when they knocked it down, where did everybody migrate to?
Well, they migrated everywhere. Some of them was able to come back into some senior citizen homes, because most of them were senior. But a lot of the young people, they had to go for themselves or something, in some certain cases. They had to just find places in outskirts of
So that's
town.
another divide the community, divide
Right.
the families, everything.
Families got divided up, broke up, everything.
Because like in your era, it sounds like it was a lot of productivity. When would you say that went from a turn? In the 70s, 80s?
I say it actually started in the early 70s. It started going backwards in the 70s.
Wow.
But it took maybe 10 years for it to be in full effect, because it was gradually done. At first it went block by block by block by block. Then it got to be sort of massive, like taking down a whole project unit at one time.
And with that being done, you start to see more crime,
Right.
more different things like that.
Right. Whenever the crime was there, but it wasn't like it wasn't really
Like it
big
is
crime.
now.
It wasn't big. It was petty crime.
Mm-hmm.
When people started getting moved out of the houses, that meant the houses were empty now, so the crime element, you had a chance to get rooted, and that's what happened.
And the way you know explaining it seemed like a plan, you know, a process.
Right.
You know, is it the fact that we was that strong?
That strong, you got too strong probably.
Let me ask you this. I went to the library tonight and I read about the boycott, the bus boycott.
Okay.
Was you around in
That was in 62. That boycott was in 62, and it lasted 2 or 3 days.
What was the cause of the boycott?
Cause The actual
the actual time.
The actual October, I said around the summer of '62 was. I don't know exactly. But the boycott was actually on, I've heard 2 or 3 different things. I don't really know what the real meaning. But what it did was, it had a lot to do with sitting in front of the bus or sitting where you want to sit on the bus and all of that. It had a lot to do with that. But what happened is the preachers and the people got together, and the way the boycott was effective was they had cars that would stop on Broadway and Cherry and pick people up instead of buses. And so that is what they really take the city off of. All of a sudden, you didn't need the buses because you had your transportation system already in place. And then they arrested some of the ministers about it. And then within 3 days, you could sit where you want to sit on the bus because it was effective. He brought the city to the knees.
So the community came together.
Right.
Do you can you see that happening again now?
I can see it happening. They just have to think about who they are. The whole community have to think about it. Sit back and think and stop acting out and sit back and think about what you're going to do.
Right.
Everything has to have a plan. Remember now, a car wasn't built overnight.
Right.
Somebody sit down and put that together.
What do you suggest we need to do to put it together?
Get to these young kids. Most of the ones I would say go out the first would be the ones that are already in jail. Because you have a captive audience, they ain't going nowhere. Sit them down. Yes, give them a Bible to read. Let them read that, and also give them a history lesson of who they are. See, can they get an education or a trade? Everybody's not going to be a doctor, lawyer, or even an Indian chief, but you can make a decent living.
Right. But that's the difference between your times and our times. It was like y'all was more creative, y'all was more hands-on, y'all was learning more, and you know, during the course of time, of course, you know, they took that out of school. They took these different things out of school. And you could see how it's really crippling us, because if we can't get a job, we don't have anything to rely on.
Yeah,
and the majority of us now don't even want a job.
See, now you're talking about taking out of school. They took vocational education away.
Right.
The last time you heard about somebody going to mechanic class, tailoring class.
I can't even remember the last time I heard somebody take that as an occupation. Like I want to be a mechanic, or I want to be a plumber, or
Well, that's what Central Georgia Tech ultimately became, was the vocational school. But before they had that, that was a part of high school, period. Plumbing. My mom worked for the vocational school. That's how she became a secretary. You know, through that. They took a lot of that away. They felt like they could put a value on learning it, and that's what kind of created school.
I think, you know, to me, I just think they want us to work. They want us to work, and they want us to be consumers. Instead of, when you have a trade, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be productive.
And you're going to teach somebody else how to do
a trade.
Right.
And that's all I think it is, you know, just keeping us in that place, keeping us as consumers, keeping us as people that go to work.
Low-wage slaves.
Right.
And speaking on the boycott and how the community stood up and overcame that, to me, that's the only way we'll ever overcome where we at now.
Right.
The unity amongst us, and you're right. We have to go at the youth, also the incarcerated brothers, because like you said, those are the brothers and sisters that have the time.
Right.
have the time to really just sit down and evaluate what you're saying. Like you said, we need to. I mean, that's where I got it at.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, that's where I got it. And for the ones who get out and that we have reached with the message, those are the people that become productive
Right.
in
And can
society.
take control of their second chance.
Right.
Yeah. Wow. I want him to talk about something. Me and you was having a conversation at the Hummingbird one day, and you was telling me how the Hummingbird had a bowling alley at the top.
Mm-hmm.
Was it a movie theater?
That was the movie theater. They played cards and shot pool. Bowling alley was up top. Then they had just the pool area where they sit down and play cards and shuffle. And downstairs
It was the bar.
was the bar, and on the other side was the restaurant.
And
What
then
happened
you
with
said,
that?
Good question.
A bowling alley.
a billiards, a bar, and a restaurant. Then he tells me, underground.
Oh, yeah, underground Macon. That's a success. It's still there. Succession of buildings, underground. They built in 1860s and 1865 and like in that era. But there are caves all downtown. You go all over. There's little inlets all through
So it's like an underworld.
underground.
Wow.
Right.
And this is like during in the army times or
It could be in the army time too, because they could have maneuvered stuff up under there like that then. This is just basically making it built underground. This is the second. We're living on the second tier.
wow.
Right. That kind of explains the valley that we sit in. Because I think
we are in the
Macon
valley.
Mall was built on a swamp.
Right.
Matter of fact, majority of Bloomfield, I think, was swampland at one point.
You had that pretty green grass all the time.
Wow.
Well,
Swampland.
the land is very productive. We know that
Right.
from dealing with the Indians.
Right.
The Indians, the Okmulgee, and they provided for 5 of the families.
Right.
So the land is very productive, useful. This is probably one of the best parts in the United States of America.
You can grow a lot with that land.
What would you like to see Macon, or where would you like to see Macon go from here?
I would like to see Macon really prosper and become more unified. And not have the hatred among the races that they have, and just be all equal. I know that's a long shot, but it's a possible shot if you just give yourself a chance to think about what you're doing to your brother and sister.
But what if Macon knew
You have to learn
the
history.
story, right? What if Macon knew the story that you're telling? Like,
When
when
they
it
have
was
to know the
productive,
history, then they'll have a different understanding of who they are.
because I get excited hearing all of that. Like,
Yeah.
it makes me want to
Recreate it.
Right.
Right.
That's what needs to be done.
Right.
That's one of my missions.
What
Right.
not,
You know,
you know, if you're willing to share, what is some of your missions?
one of my missions is pass the history of Macon on to as many young people or anyone that want to listen to it. And let them hear my story. Or anybody else's story I can tell along with my story.
Right.
And how Macon used to be in my lifetime.
Have you ever got with anybody to try to create your story?
Not to no real extent. I've told different people about different things.
Mm-hmm.
I've done little lectures at different places. Never know how far that went though.
We want to help you with that.
No problem.
That's something we talked about before this interview even happened.
I
Matter of
feel
fact,
like
That's how this podcast
Me,
came about.
I feel like it would help because Macon, you have a lot of musicians still,
Right, you do.
and they need the guidance and
Knowledge.
the understanding of the business, what goes on with the business, and how to just, like you
The
said,
business is 70%, performance is 30%. You can make a living in the music business,
perform.
but you can't make a living as a musician. It's a big difference. The business of music is what they need to learn. How the money is made and where it's made. It's not made in the club. It's made on the bottom of the table, sitting down with an attorney and negotiating 1% here, 5% here, 10% here. See, I'm cutting the pie up. Now you go out there and play for 1 hour.
That's your slave.
That's your part of it. That's your part of it.
Right.
But the other part is working for you because you have a contract with someone, somewhere, some kind of way,
Well, you getting a piece of that
getting a
too.
piece of the action on that.
Speaking of contracts, what was it like for you when you did your first contract and got your first big break?
My first contract was basically with Red Wall Music. And I never seen a contract before. I didn't know what the heck going on. But I was guided through. I learned, I had on-the-job training.
Did you, you know, like nowadays, or even, you know, in my era, getting a deal was a big deal. You know what I
It's
mean?
a real big deal.
Like, hey, I finally made it. Did you have that same feeling?
No, but I didn't know whether I was gonna make it or not. You know, it was a night for night. You had to earn somebody's trust in order to be there in the beginning. And so you had to just be loyal to the trust. In the long run, it'll pay off. And sometimes you even have, like, I've been in the studio, but you didn't have to sign a contract. They knew that you were going to do a good job because you're there on time and you can play whatever it is you need to play. And at the end, you're going to get paid what you're going to get paid.
So it wasn't like a record deal where you signed to Otis record label.
No,
And then you just
not as a musician, but as a artist, you have to go through that. Now that's where you need a little side lawyer. Just to, because all that stuff is in language you don't know. As long as language.
Absolutely.
And so the average person can't even, I mean, you put up a contract and you start looking at it, after the first page you say, well, what am I reading? And it's going to be that thick. So if you take Johnny went to the 3rd grade, and said, we're going to sign you to a contract, you're going to say, where is it to be fixed? I don't read. He's going to say, oh, that's the one they hook.
That's the ones they get.
They get them.
So they can take advantage of the whole situation.
Now the one that said, oh, I've been to law school a year older. Well, we can work with you.
They switched it up on you.
Yeah, that's the switch right there.
Yeah.
To give you the real deal, what's happening.
They push it in front of you to see if you really know, and then based on how you read it and how you interpret it is
Depending on what's gonna happen to you.
absolutely.
It makes sense with what's going on now then.
That's what you need, a good manager. Most managers have a little up the knowledge. They can read the contract and they can say, this is a good deal, this is not a good deal. You hear that all the time.
Yeah. Like I was just speaking with Tiffany Tillman, who she has her own management, and she's not really music oriented, but she's business oriented.
Business oriented,
And that's helping these artists. The artists that's with her, you could see from the beginning to now the growth.
Okay.
You know, they do their thing with the music, but as far as the business moves and different things like that, you could definitely see the growth.
They groom, right.
What do you recommend to these young artists?
I would recommend to a lot of artists is to actually take a course in the business of music. It's not a hard course to go through, but at least you won't be a dummy at the table.
Mm. Wow.
What do you recommend to the independent artists, like the artist that's not really, chasing the deal or anything like that? He just wants to solely be independent.
Study your craft, get real good, and pray a lot.
And you said the music business is 70% performance.
Yeah.
What did you
Business.
say?
Business.
Oh, 70% business.
30%
30%
performance.
That makes sense to what we see now. We don't see a lot of talent. We see more business now with deals with McDonald's and what's that girl name that got a deal with McDonald's? I haven't even heard none of her music, but I'm like, she got a commercial with McDonald's,
Yeah.
Swahi or something like that.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing now how it's.
I actually love it though, because to see how far it has grown. I remember at one time these corporations
Wouldn't give us a chance, right?
wouldn't
Yeah.
accept it. Now because we took over the market and we're leading, we're everywhere. It's not a commercial or anything that's not what they consider to be urban or black influence.
The money is basically a lot of the money is set up now. Like give you a good example. I'm gonna go high end. Let's say like a Super Bowl commercial. They'll get a major artist.
Well, you said the Super Bowl. Let's talk about this year's halftime show.
Halftime shows will be another good.
That was the first time.
That's
you
right.
know that they let that type of genre of music.
And look who the backers were.
Mhm.
That means the money is there. So if the money is there, that means somewhere on the table, you're going to give me X amount of performance for X amount of dollars, and blah, 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 blah.
Right. But one thing that I learned about the Super Bowl is a lot of people that was involved with that move, they're owners.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Dr. Dre, Snoop, 50 Cent. So
Jay-Z.
the jewel is let's start owning so we can start making these moves.
That comes in knowing the business.
Absolutely.
You learn to own your own.
Absolutely.
That was the same purpose behind Otis getting the Capricorn building
I wanna,
and all that. I own this.
before we close out, cause I love this man's music. How important to the culture Sam Cooke was?
Ooh, he was the first man to have his own. He did exactly what Sam Cooke is a prime example. He owned SAR Star Records, and then he had his own company. Then he even had his own label. He had his own people, like was it Sam and Bill or something, that had on his label. He had people under him. And he owned a production company. That's the program probably Otis heard and tried to duplicate. To own your own company with the publishing rights.
Right.
That's where you're gonna cash in.
Publishing. With that being said, we did it for the culture, man. This is a wonderful episode. A lot of jewels. A legend.
Try to be. Thank you, sir.
We out of here.
God and Light Healthcare Services offers comprehensive mental health, substance abuse, and other behavior and mental health conditions, bringing hope, help, and healing, improving the people of Central Georgia a renewed quality of life. God and Light Healthcare Services, located in Warner Robins, call the office at 478-449-8800 to schedule your virtual appointment, in which due to COVID they are now offering free COVID-19 testing, or on the website at www.glhcs.com. God and Light Healthcare Services, where we focus on the client, not the profit.